Hello friends, a very warm welcome to Ansarkari. And in the session today, again, likewise you would have seen in the previous one that we are going to pick up key ideas and thoughts which can help you to understand the gravity of the topics. Now, first topic is saying that Trump hits India with 25% tariff plus a Russia penalty. Now see the language, see the way it is provided. Do you really think so that such kind of approach can do any good to sovereign nations? Do you really think that global institutions like United Nations or WTO, or even for that matter, other international institutions like ICC, ICJ, or even World Bank and IMF, they must be party to such kind of developments. So the question is, how long powerful country which is there because of not an individual, but because of the historical and also geopolitical circumstances for more than 200 years is really the good way? That is the first point. Secondly, how India is going to react. So you must also think on your own and write back 5 points to me that these are the steps India must take when United States is actually jumping and acting it like a bait or like a black. India's smartphone success story is very true because when Indian iPhones are also going, then they will also be more expensive for the US citizen. Massive trade deficit is there. It is not because of India's benefit. It is because US had reached its peak. US had reached a phenomenal level of materialistic growth where no more scope retains. That is why the deficit will be always there. And the deficit is there because India is exporting drug formulations, biologicals, telecom instruments, precious and semi-precious stones, petroleum products, vehicles, automobile components, gold, and so forth. If that is the case, then labor-intensive goods also be very much cheap in the US, but that is not the case. So this is how we can take one idea. So is it really Trump's tariff tsunami or is it a blackmail? Is it a kind of a idea that Trump wants to showcase? But on the other hand, India will definitely going to secure its national interests, and whether it is agriculture exports, whether it is oil companies, phones and laptops are out of tariff net. That is, that is how the beauty is, and even pharmaceuticals are also like that. And textile exporters are also going to be in the same wind. So the question is that again, I'm saying when there will be a climb down, then how US will be doing it. For example, when we are saying India is caught in tariff jam, so crude shock, one can say, because then the oil will be costlier, inflationary activities will be there, and US tariff is going to threaten India's 37 billion textile because it is going to get more less competitive, I should say, with respect to Vietnam, Bangladesh, China, and so forth. And even India's agri export to the US, that is over 5 billion, especially shrimp and basmati rice, it is also going to get a setback, and there will be rivals like Ecuador. Whereas India electronic exports, it remains duty free. And then finally, the kind of pressure which is there on pharma, as I just said, that there may be a pressure later on. So textile leather exporters, they are believing that there is going to be a kind of agreement, there is going to be a kind of a negotiation, there is going to be a kind of a profit. But then the kind of figure which is shown here, apart from the seafood, basmati rice, and all that I've discussed, please do try to write down and make this graphic representation of India's export to the US and in the import for US in your notebook so that we can draw it. And also, please remember 19.8% share of total exports and US 48 billion services exports are there. Duty free access to electronics and in US return. I want to ask you, can you reason why so that we can discuss further? ISRO NASA satellite placed in orbit, very, very important, very important. I think one of the biggest achievements of the India-US collaboration on one hand, and on the other hand, we are speaking about these developments where tariff is there. But NISAR, which stands for NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar, very, very important. Is the most powerful Earth observation satellite to be placed in space ever, and it is a result of a more than 1 decade. The unique of satellite lies in the fact that it carries two synthetic aperture radars, the L band and the S band. The S band is by ISRO and the L band is by NASA, and both are having their own uniqueness because the L band is having the more broad and a kind of what I can say that it will be able to observe a large area and it will be able to observe with depth, whereas S band is going to see the detailed part of it. So this is very, very important. And synthetic aperture radars are imaging equipment that use non-visible microwave radiation to create pictures of Earth from space. Never ever had been done before. Two SARs mounted on a single satellite. So it was sent through GSLV rocket, and the satellite was deposited on Sun synchronous polar orbit. तो आप Sun synchronous polar orbit बनाइए और मुझे दिखाइए. About 747 kilometers from the Earth within 19 minutes of the launch. This is the first time that ISRO used a powerful GSLV rocket to drop a satellite in SSPO, Sun synchronous polar orbit. Usually PSLV rocket is used to access this orbit, but NISAR satellite was too heavy, and that is why 2,932 kgs. NISAR is the heaviest Earth observation satellite ever. That is why GSLV was used. And grand success, cryogenic upper stage corrections, host of mission simulations were there. Vehicle performance was expected, and that is how V. Narayanan sir, the chairman of ISRO, he said that it is the first successful launch. Narayanan took over. NISAR is meant to take high resolution pictures of Earth, wide range research activities, climate change, disaster management, earthquake, agriculture, forestry, urban planning, and used by e-commerce and other kind of firms. And they will work in tandem. Minute detail can be there, even of place like a small half of the size of a tennis court. And satellite was injected just 2 kilometers off the planned orbit. This was very small difference, much less than the margin of error with this which this satellite can happen. It's very, very important. Again, I'm saying very important for the mains examination, and it's a slow process and it's a delicate system. So one can say that scientific observations will be there and it will be freely available so that development can take place. This is a collaboration mission with NASA, as I just said, and NASA satellite would map the entire globe every 12 days, providing a series of detailed images that can have various applications, predicting disasters, helping in rescue efforts, developing new models for earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and study of impact of climate change. The mission life of the satellite is 5 years, so you can think of billions of dollars given, more than a decade of research, and then for 5 years we can learn and we can work a lot. So that is how it is. Very, very important and a meaningful development.
Destination Uttarakhand. Promotion of industry and investment, very important. Uttarakhand is scaling new heights as it is claimed, but then as we can see through disasters, that this development has to be correlated with that development also. So investment is very important, and government initiatives are there, whether it is single window, whether it is infrastructure development, skill development, marketing, development of mountainous regions. And the key investment areas are very, very important to be seen. You have to see that whether it is tourism and hospitality, whether it is IT and startup, film industry, and most importantly, you have to see the challenges, landslide and disaster. This is very, very important challenge, and Uttarakhand is still suffering from this development. And the kind of tourism pattern that we want to develop, whether it is destination wedding, adventure tourism, wellness tourism, this has to be seen. So you have to bring not the general points, but the second or third layer of the points. African mahogany or jamun. Doubts grow over Nigeria's G20 summit present. So this is how it is. African mahogany is presented by Nigeria during the G20 summit in September 2023 at Nehru Park. So it is in a white mesh enclosure. Sapling is nearly waist high with pale green elongated leaves on its slender branches. That's what is given. So Nehru Park itself is a picture of diversity. So that is how the African mahogany is like jamun. That's what one can say. So this is a kind of a cultural element. This is a kind of a natural element of a city, and it is an example of diplomacy also. So all foreign saplings, ceremonial drives, whatever has been done, they are actually quarantined for over 3 months to be ensured to be free from pets at the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources at Pusa. And huge difference is there between the varieties which is in India and in Africa. So for example, there is a difference between jamun and African mahogany. So Operation Sindhu debate in Parliament, it is reformed a conscientious republic unafraid to question and challenge. That is how it is. So definitely Sindoor may symbolize many things: tactical audacity, calibrated resolve, emergence of assertive India, but a vibrant parliament debate and also the questions raised by opposition, they are very, very important. They are very, very important. And the question is that it is not just the military strategy, but also the people's belief and their confidence. It is the coordination, and also how India went on to fight the misinformation, disinformation, and intelligence must be raised. The tragedy could have been averted if the failure would have been detected earlier on. Doctrine must be, more smarter, and the narrative sovereignty must be institutionalized. For example, what Trump was calling over there and what Trump is saying in terms of now on tariff, we India are united ones. That is very, very important. Parliament must become a permanent participant in the national security discourse. This is also very important. And the last point we can say, uh, that Sindoor is having many meanings, and all the meanings are important as far as India is together, India is working, India is argumentative, India is proud, India is walking forward, and India as a nation, as an entity, as a civilization is amazing. Now, Bihar SIR data. Now, again, this is another debatable and a very, very important point to be discussed. Supreme Court said that we will not intervene as long as we find that there is no big problem. Election Commission is powerful enough and also capable enough to carry on, and the exercise must be carried on. But the question is that if the large scale deletion is carried out, it will be leading to the mass disenfranchisement. What to do with that? So that is the whole question. So the point is that a table is given here in case of Bihar, and likely impact of SIR on electors of adult population ratio in Bihar. So it is saying that it will be 88% because around 9% will be deleted. So rather than that, the question is that those who have migrated, those who are no more, those who have duplicate votes, and those who have shifted, this is very, very important. So this is to be done in such a way that it should not seem like only opposition votes are being cut. So the quality of electoral roll is judged on the basis of accuracy, completeness, and equity. Accuracy, no error must be there. Completeness, not leaving anyone behind, and equity is that a fair representation to all social groups. So if those who are not having the kind of documents, then election commission is also saying that it will be sending its ground officers and field officers to it. So there is no point, there is no problem with that. The census based projections in the report of the technical group on population by the National Commission on Population, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, are the best source for population. So that is how it is. And the question is that how the missing votes you will be identifying, that whether they are no more, whether they have passed away, whether they're in another city, or so forth. So that is why it is you as a candidate for the mains exam must clearly observe this. If you are having sociology, anthropology, or even political science and even economics as your optional apart from public administration. Kamashka quick, a detailed thing is given here for the prelims. Very, very important. You must know all these places where they are for the prelims, and also the ring of fire is the mains examination. It will be mains examination diagram. Very important. But the Kamachka Peninsula lies in the circumference seismic belt, popularly known as ring of fire, and which witnesses maximum number of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The seismically active belt encircles almost the entire Pacific Ocean, because on its eastern side is the west coast of Americas, and on its western side lies the Far East and Oceania. It touches countries like US, Mexico, Chile, Peru, New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, Philippines, Japan, and Russia. Very, very important for the prelims. And a direct question have come up in the mains, and again it will come on ring of fire. So this whole article which we are discussing is very, very important from the geography and also mains perspective. So the biggest recorded earthquake, 9.5 in Chile, 1960. The nearly 2,000 kilometer long extended from Kamasha Peninsula in the north to northern Japan in the south, including the volcanically active Kuril Islands of Russia. They are very, very important. So that is why. So the phenomena is the process of subduction, because the circum-Pacific seismic belt is home to multiple subduction processes, and Pacific tectonic belt is clashing against continental land. And what is subduction? Is a geological process in which one tectonic plate, a large section of earth crust, presses against another, usually the heavier or denser plate. That is the one with the more mass per unit area, and it tends to go below the lighter plate. Okay, lighter plate will be up and the heavier plate will be down. But this process results in deformities and creates huge stress on the plate boundaries. And it is this stress which is released in the form of earthquakes. The Himalayas were created due to subduction as a result of Indian plate pushing against the Eurasian plate. This is also the reason why Himalayan region is one of the most volcanic prone in the world. and we can say that majority of the subduction zones are under the sea. The Pacific Ocean, particularly the so-called Ring of Fire region, is witnessing several such processes. The Pacific plate is denser and is subducting under the continental plate at several places on both sides. There is no other place on Earth where so many subduction processes are happening, and this is why regions produce so many earthquakes. Pacific seismic belt is one of the three largest earthquake zones of the Earth. The Alpide zone, spanning from Indonesia through the Himalayas and further to Afghanistan, Iran, and Turkey, which runs mostly over the land, and this is the second most earthquake prone in the world. So, what we can say, uh, that the Ring of Fire, which is actually the space for 80% of the all big earthquakes, the Alpide belt contributes only 15 to 17%. This belt traverses some of the most heavily populated area on the planet, which makes the earthquake over there very deadly because it has got such a huge population. And it is believed and it is found that all heaviest earthquakes that take place under the oceans, the one on the land, even if they are weaker, are often more deadly due to the proximity to population centers. So the very, very important article, very, very important ones. So Kamachka quake, we have just spoken about. And third most important seismic belt is known as Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which runs north-south through the middle entire of Atlantic Ocean and the Arctic to the Antarctic region. This subduction zone is, one can say, this subduction zone, one can say, is in the middle of the ocean. That's what we can see and read. And deep underwater also, like the way I said, the heaviest and the most crucial and cruel earthquakes can take place in the seas. So this zone produces relatively moderate earthquakes, and their impact on is minimal considering their distance from land. The strength of the earthquake is dependent on the length of the fault line. That is for prelims. That is extent of the plate boundary that clashes against each other. A large fault line is more likely to produce a stronger earthquake, and 9.5 magnitude earthquake, the largest that has been recorded, is essentially the limit to how a strong earthquake can be. To produce anything stronger, say an even magnitude of 10 or more, fault line extended to almost the entire earth would be required. So that is why it is not possible. No current fault line is capable of producing such a uh, big and such a huge earthquake. So very, very important, very, very pointed. This article is a very crucial one. You make all the notes separately and also draw the diagram and also all the details for PT and mains. So why the blast accused were freed in the 2006 Mumbai blast by the judiciary? Because there were no, what we can say, convincing evidences. There were no convincing evidences before the High Court, and confessions were extracted through barbaric and inhuman torture. Eyewitnesses' accounts were lacking credibility, and the recovered materials were vulnerable to tampering, therefore inadmissible. So, unreliable eyewitnesses is one of the very important thing. So that is why, uh, so the High Court was not in the view that in case of coerced confessions and also not the scientifically no scientific investigation, then how you can say that these were the people? And the High Court also uh, delivered a decisive blow to the prosecution by holding that very invocation of Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act was unlawful, because the state requires prior sanction by the competent authority, a police officer not below the rank of DIG, before it can be invoked in a case. This is a crucial safeguard against the stringent anti-terror law, which reverses the burden of proof and allows prolonged detention and dilutes evidentiary standards. So sanctioning officers has granted approval without examining the necessary document. होना तो चाहिए. Some of which were submitted only after the approval had been issued. So mere production of some expressions of organized crime containing unlawful activities or organized crime syndicate to show the compliance cannot be said to be tuned with the letter and spirit of the law relating to grant the approval for invocation and the provisions for invocation in this regard. So that is why destruction of evidence, another point Supreme Court said. That is why Supreme Court went on to stay the judgment, and then it is not going to reverse those who have been released, but the judgment had been stayed because the judges found serious lapses in the handling of physical evidence, including RDX granules, detonators, pressure cookers, circuit boards, hooks, and maps. The prosecution failed to maintain clear chain of custody. So, what is your view and how it could have been better? You can write back in 5 points. Very important for the prelims, Indian harmonium. We have to see that the Indian portable harmonium is a close cousin of the larger foot pumped organ that once found in European churches. So, harmonium is a Western instrument. So harmonium is not using strings, it is not using membranes, it is not using electronic circuit. Fuel is air in motion. The air in motion is very important thing. Sare gama pada nisa. Because the compartment walls don't move, the air pressure within rises above the normal atmospheric pressure by a small amount, usually by few kilopascals, and the compartment also holds a slender interior spring or a weighted flap that helps maintain this pressure. So even if you don't pump the bellows at a regular rate, in fact, as long as you pump the bellows every few seconds, the reeds will feel enough pressure to make sound. सो इंटरव्यू के लिए बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन है कि अगर आपके पास फिजिक्स है, आपसे अगर पूछा जाता है कि आप बताइए हारमोनियम वर्क कैसे करता है, हारमोनियम कैसे वर्क करेगा. द कीबोर्ड ऑन द टॉप ऑफ हारमोनियम resembles a piano in miniature, but unlike in a piano, each key is only a lever. If you press a key, it's far and tilts upward inside the box, lifting the pallet lined with felt. The pallet covers a hole that leads from the pressure raised wooden compartment to a single metal reed. तो वो दबता है और एक बार जब आप छोड़ते हो तब आवाज आती है. तो मोस्ट हारमोनियम एक्सपोज 1.5 to 3 reeds to each hole. A stop rod is there next to the keyboard, allowing you to choose which set of the reeds called a bank is active at any given point of time. और what we can say is that कि पूरा का पूरा कैसे समझाया है यहाँ पे, ये हमें देखना है. सो साउंड जो है अलाइव होती है बिकॉज एयर से, जैसा मैंने कहा, ये हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बहुत अच्छा है समझने के लिए. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट अगेन इंडिया के मैंग्रोव्स के ऊपर अगर बात की जाए, जैसे आपका अंडमान निकोबार है, मैंग्रोव्स मैटर करते हैं. पहले तो हमारे प्रीलिम्स के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सुंदरबन डेल्टा हो गए, मुंगरेव के स्टीफल क्रीक्स हो गए, सब जगह हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, especially in the face of urban expansion, climate change. Mangrove swamps are forested wetlands characterized by trees that can tolerate saline water. The role of biodiversity conservation is significant. Mangroves provide breeding and nursery grounds for fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and migratory birds. These salt-tolerant forests can also source significant amount of blue carbon. Very important, very different. The carbon captured by marine and coastal ecosystems. तो मैंग्रोव इन इंडिया 4,900 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर. आपको पता होना चाहिए तमिलनाडु है, उड़ीसा है, गुजरात है, कर्नाटका है. कोस्टल कम्युनिटीज स्पेशली ट्रेडिशनल फिशरमैन वो प्रमोट करते हैं. बट इट इज थ्रेटन्ड बाय aquaculture, pollution, increasing climate patterns. IUCN की रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक तमिलनाडु की बात की गई है कि कैसे वहां पर श्रिम्प फार्मिंग, इंडस्ट्रियल पोल्यूशन और ऑल्टर्ड हाइड्रोलॉजी से जो एरिया खराब भी हुए थे वो कम्युनिटी पार्टिसिपेशन से कैसे ठीक किए गए. तमिलनाडु मिशन एंड अदर कोस्टल रिस्टोरेशन प्रोग्राम ये सब बताए गए. और वहां पर इसीलिए आप कह सकते हो कि जो मैंग्रोव है उसके जो प्रेजेंस है वो भी डबल हो गई है. सो दैट इज वाई वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इज ऑफ पट्टुवानाची एस्चुरी ऑफ मुथुपेट्टई. सो पूरे इंडिया के लिए हमें मॉडल चाहिए. और मुंबई की अगर बात करते हैं तो BMC का भी मॉडल है उसके लिए. इकोलॉजिकल रिस्टोरेशन विद अर्बन क्लीनअप. बायोडिग्रेडेबल बैरियर्स कॉल्ड ट्रैश बूम्स were installed to intercept plastic pollution, targeted the collection of a 150 ton of plastic over 3 years. गुजरात का भी सक्सेसफुल मॉडल दिया है. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है हमें समझना. और एग्जाम के अंदर हम सौराष्ट्र, कच्छ या इनका एग्जाम्पल देके लिख सकते हैं. तो हमें एक आइडिया देना बहुत जरूरी है. मार्केट मैनिपुलेशन और लेजिट शॉर्ट सेलिंग. जो जेन स्ट्रीट एपिसोड है वो हेजिंग की तरफ से हम उसे नहीं देख सकते, लेकिन मैनिपुलेशन, जो प्रॉफिट हुआ उसका कारण ही यही है कि पहले आप स्टॉक को ऊपर उठाओगे, जब वो उड़ जाएगा और आपको लगता है कि मुनाफा आप कमा सकते तो आपने कमाया और उसको उसको डंप कर दिया. तो बिगेस्ट शॉर्ट सेलर इन इंडियन मार्केट जेन स्ट्रीट. अब उन्होंने फाइन डिपॉजिट कर दिया है. क्रिटिकल क्वेश्चन है मार्केट मैनिपुलेशन लेजिटिमेट शॉर्ट सेलिंग का, क्योंकि दोनों में बहुत ही थिन लाइन है. शॉर्ट सेलिंग में, लेजिटिमेट शॉर्ट सेलिंग में और मार्केट मैनिपुलेशन में. तो इसीलिए ये समझना बहुत जरूरी है कि रेगुलेटर जो है कैसे डिस्टिंग्विश करेगा मार्केट मार्केट मैनिपुलेशन को और शॉर्ट सेलिंग को. सो हिडनबर्ग का अटैक अडानी ग्रुप के ऊपर हुआ, फिर उसके बाद कंपनी को लॉसेस भी हुए. एंड जो जो भी बीच की जो फर्म्स को अपना कमाना है वो इस तरीके से अपना कमा के चीजों को छोड़ते बनते हैं, लेकिन जो उसका नुकसान है वो आम आदमी को उठाना पड़ता है. अब आप ये सोचिए, अगर एक हेज फंड इतना वॉल्यूम जनरेट कर सकता है और पूरे के पूरे इंटायर इंडेक्स को इम्पैक्ट कर सकता है, तो इसका मतलब हमारे रेगुलेटरी और मार्केटिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में गैप है. तो क्या हम ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं जिससे इन कमियों को हम रोक पाए, इन कमियों को हम ना रिपीट होने दें. अब क्या होगा? जैन स्ट्रीट विल हायर एक्सपेंसिव लॉयर्स. appellate ट्रिब्यूनल को कंफ्यूज करेंगे, लेटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट को कंफ्यूज करेंगे, और उसके बाद जो है आगे बढ़ते चले जाएंगे और लास्ट में उनको मौका मिलेगा और फिर से एक्टिव हो जाएंगे। तो इरेगुलरिटीज को रोकना होगा, और डेरिवेटिव वॉल्यूम जो हमारे स्टॉक उसकी है उसको हमें देखना होगा कि कैसे उसको सही डायरेक्शन में पुश किया जाए। और बाकी भी एफपीआईज हैं, फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, जो इस तरह के काम में, शेडी काम में लगे हुए हैं। तो क्रिटिकल क्वेश्चन वही है कि कैसे आप रोक पाएंगे, कैसे आप इसको मार्केट मैनिपुलेशन कैसे आप अवॉइड कर सकते हैं। तो वही बात है कि इसके लिए हमें और स्ट्रिक्ट होना पड़ेगा और मर्सी दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं। चाइनीज एआई स्ट्रैटेजी रिलाइज ऑन फ्रेंजी एंड फ्रेनिमीज, सही बात है। तो वर्ल्ड एआई कॉन्फ्रेंस जो कन्वीन होती है और स्कोर्स ऑफ रोबोट लाइफ में आते हैं, तो वही बात है, स्ट्रॉन्ग कॉन्ट्रास्ट है ये यूएस और बेजिंग की स्ट्रैटेजी में। और आप कह सकते हैं डीप सीक के बाद ये पहली गैदरिंग है, इंटेंस इंटेंस कंपटीशन है, एक्सुबरेंट क्राउड्स हैं, लिटिल ड्रैगन मून शोट सब कुछ है। तो चाइना का जो करंट एआई फ्रेंजी है वो बेस्ट एंड द वर्स्ट ऑफ क्लासिक कैपिटलिज्म जता रहा है, क्योंकि हम ये कह सकते हैं द कंपटीशन प्रपोज इनोवेशन एट रैपिड क्लिप, लेकिन सारी कंपनी सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाएंगी अगले 10 साल में, वो खत्म हो जाएंगी। 1500 लार्ज एआई मॉडल्स जो है अभी रिलीज किए गए हैं और 5000 एआई कंपनीज हैं वहाँ। डोमेस्टिक राइवलरी भी डिस्प्ले के ऊपर है, जियोपॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट भी है। तो शंघाई के अंदर आप देख सकते हैं प्रीमियम ली ख्यांग, उन्होंने हेडलाइन किया और कहा चाइना विल ऑर्गेनाइज द लॉन्च ऑफ एन इंटरनेशनल बॉडी टू जॉइंटली डेवलप टेक्नोलॉजी विद द गोल ऑफ प्रिवेंटिंग इट फ्रॉम एक्सक्लूसिव गेम फ्रॉम नंबर ऑफ स्मॉल एंड एंटरप्राइजेस। सो वही बात है कि वो चाहते हैं कि ग्लोबल सॉलिडरिटी इन द एआई एरा हमें फायदा करे। Still, what these leaders say is one thing and what they do is another. That is the whole point. So NVIDIA का आप एग्जांपल ले लीजिए कि NVIDIA जो है एक मल्टी बिलियन डॉलर कंपनी बन चुकी है, और सॉलिडरिटी की बात भी, तो इंडिया इसमें क्या कर सकता है, इंडिया इसके अंदर कैसे अपने एआई मिशंस को और एआई से पूरे समाज का, भारत का भला और पूरे विश्व का भला कैसे सोच सकता है, ये आपको सोचना है। इसी का एक एग्जांपल है दूसरा, लीवरेज कोबोट्स फॉर स्मॉल लॉजिस्टिक्स। तो एक वेयर हाउस जहां पर सब कुछ एफिशिएंटली रोबोट काम कर रहे हैं, इसकी बात हो रही है, पर अभी ये बहुत दूर है। एआई का तो यूज होने लगा है, चैटबॉट्स भी होने लगे हैं। अब आप कह सकते हैं कि इंडिया का ई कॉमर्स सेक्टर भी ग्रो कर रहा है, तो ये जब फास्टर ग्रो करेगा पूरी विजिबिलिटी के साथ, तो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हमें एआई एनेबल्ड ऑटोनोमस मोबाइल रोबोट्स हमें चाहिए, पिकिंग, सॉर्टिंग और ट्रेलर अनलोडिंग का काम करने के लिए। वही पावरफुल इनोवेशन होगा, और हमें एक रोबोटिक्स हब भी बनाना पड़ेगा। फ्यूचर ऑफ लॉजिस्टिक इज नॉट जस्ट फास्टर मशीन, दे आर स्मार्टर ऑल्सो। तो ये लिखने वाले कौन है, डीएचएल के वाइस प्रेसिडेंट आईटी। लेकिन द क्वेश्चन अराइजेज कि क्या जो गवर्नमेंट का अप्रोच है, या क्या जो लीडर्स हम गवर्नमेंट के लिए क्रिएट करते हैं, क्या वो भी इसी अप्रोच से बिल्कुल सहमत होंगे कि आप इस तरह की चीज कीजिए, और वन कैन फाइंड इसके और भी कोई शॉर्टकट्स या कोई और भी आइडियाज है। अब वाई सम स्टेट्स लैग इन द रेस टू गेट रिच, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है। बहुत सारी बातें, पर कैपिटा इनकम है, पर कैपिटा इनकम कैसे है, आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा। पर कैपिटा इनकम क्या माइग्रेशन को कैप्चर कर रही है, पर कैपिटा इनकम से हो कैसे रहा है। तो गुजरात आर बिकमिंग रिचर मच फास्टर इवन एज स्टेट्स सच एज बिहार आर लैगिंग बिहाइंड इन पर कैपिटा इनकम। स्टेट्स का मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में शेयर बढ़ चुका है, तो करंट एस्टिमेट अलग अलग स्टेट का अलग अलग है, बट द क्वेश्चन अराइजेज जो डिस्पैरिटी है ओवर द ईयर्स वो होनी चाहिए। बिहार, छत्तीसगढ़, झारखंड, राजस्थान, उत्तराखंड, वेस्ट बंगाल, ये सब बहुत ज्यादा लैग कर रहे हैं। तो आप इनको कैसे करेंगे, द क्वेश्चन इज दैट। डिस्पैरिटी है जो रिच और पुअर के बीच में, उसको देखना होगा। उसके कारण आपको देखना होगा एग्रीकल्चर, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, सर्विसेज, और साथ साथ में जो लोकल ब्यूरोक्रेसी है उसका रोल क्या है, चीफ मिनिस्टर से लेकर उनके आइडिया और आइडेंटिटी क्या है, तो ही आप आगे बढ़ा पाएंगे, नहीं तो बहुत दिक्कत होने वाली है। रिसोर्स रिच स्टेट सच एज ओडिशा, गोवा एंड झारखंड आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू हैव हायर वेरिएशन ड्यू टू रॉयल्टी इनकम्स। सो हमें देखना होगा कि किस तरीके से हम अच्छे आंसर्स में इनको लेके आ सकते हैं। तो रीजंस बहुत सारे हैं, चाहे फिर इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स हैं, और उसके बाद जो है some regions have benefited because of second generation reforms and post liberalization। लेकिन हमें फिर भी सेकंड और थर्ड लेयर में इसकी जाना होगा और उसको समझना होगा, और उसको हम इकोनॉमिक्स की सीरीज में जो हमारे आंसर्स हैं उसके साथ हम उसको लिंक कर सकते हैं, डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, so that we are able to understand and we are able to convey the whole idea of picking up important topics and trying to learn how to think so that we can write extempore, but we will be planning in the mains examination. And that is what Ansarkari is willing and also always striving for. So thank you very much for making notes and also being part of different Sarkari programs. We assure and we want you to have a consistent, smart and a meaningful success in your journey for civil services.